the point of the whole sporting idea and the rules and regulations and all that stuff is that you hand out continuous penalties to everybody making the same mistake or doing the same thing. And ultimately, if we have more incidences just like this, we should be handing out the same penalty.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to F1 True North, the Canadian Formula One podcast. We're back. We got Thomas, I'm Walker, and Drew is back from vacation. Welcome back, Drew. We are talking about Saudi, the Jeddah Corniche circuit. We had our race this past weekend. We can talk about our first impressions and we can go over that. Just want to let you know, I have three very specific things that I want to cover in this podcast. So let's just jump right into the first one, shall we? If you're ready.
Let's do it.
I want to talk about race start, first corner, Oscar and Max. Was that worth a 5-second penalty? Drew.
Quick answer is no. Like, I want to shit all over Max. I always want to, but like, he held it together so well. You know, he got the message from GP saying that he got that 5-second penalty, and like they figured that out pretty quick. I think it was by lap 5. Like, I don't even think the safety car had ended before they figured out that he was getting that 5-second penalty. And to be honest, like, I've been watching F1 for a while now, and like they've been given a lot of leeway on first lap kind of incidences like that. And could I have seen him like give track position back or something like that? I just don't think it warranted the 5-second penalty because, you know, with how competitive all those top teams are, taking a 5-second penalty in the pits before anyone touches the car for a tire change, I just think that it was justice unserved, I think, at this point, man.
Don't know. I think the 5-second penalty was definitely warranted. From the looks of it and everything, it looked like it was Piastri's corner, and Max, Piastri didn't push him off or anything like that. I think it was fair game for a racing incident, but I think it was a well-deserved 5-second penalty. So I'm with FIA on this one, and I think, he did have to get that penalty. I think that was a fair move by the FIA.
Interesting. So here's a question, follow-up to both of you. If it was Oscar and anyone else, would there be a penalty? If that was Charles or George in that second car, would there be a penalty?
Walker, I know where you're going with this, and I can kind of see, and I like what direction you're going in, because I think, I don't know if it's the FIA or if, the governing bodies or whatever they're trying to do is like make it look like they're not trying to favor Max in any capacity. Like if that's what they're trying to do, and be like, are they going too hard in the other direction? Are they saying like, oh, well, Max got a lot of free passes in the past. Maybe now we're going to penalize him more than we would have any other driver. I want to say yes. Like, I think handing out this penalty to Max is just giving like a blanket, like the point of the whole sporting idea and the rules and regulations and all that stuff is that you hand out continuous penalties to everybody making the same mistake or doing the same thing. And ultimately, if we have more incidences just like this, we should be handing out the same penalty. Do I think that, this is the start of something? Maybe. They used to like I said earlier, they used to let a lot of first lap stuff go because like those first corners can get very hectic. You know what I mean? And especially in Saudi with that long straight. And I listen, do I think that Oscar or Max had that inside corner, man? Like, man, when those guys are driving in there at 100 and something miles an hour, like it's hard to say at those exact seconds who had the corner, whatever. Max didn't have anywhere to go. He had to go off. Did he have to go off and cut the corner that hard? Did he try to stay on? No. Did Oscar like do everything he could to stay on? Absolutely. Would I have preferred this over a collision? 100%. You know what I mean? I don't want those guys crashing and ruining the whole race. We already had Yuki and Gasly in the back tagging each other up on that first corner. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I just think that, to answer your question more directly, do I think that anybody else, if it was anyone else in Oscar into that first corner, would have got the penalty? Let me answer. I hope so. I hope that everyone else would have got the same penalty because that's the point of rules and regulations.
But you still think that it wasn't that penalty wasn't warranted given that corner and what happened?
No, not at all. I'm just
saying
you
don't think it was a valid penalty. You just think that they would have given it to anyone.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. I think they're just trying to set a precedent for the first corners or whatever they're trying to do. And I'm okay with it, but just keep doing it. Don't pick and choose when you do it.
So Thomas, Same penalty if Max is not involved?
I'd say it would be the same exact penalty, same outcome, and everything would be the exact same thing, yes.
Interesting. So here's my take on that first corner incident. At first I saw it, I was watching live, and I was like, oh yeah, 100%, right? That's a penalty, gained an advantage, case closed, right? And then you start seeing more replays, and you start seeing more angles, and you start seeing the onboards. And I don't think it's as clear cut as I thought it was originally. And essentially what I think happened is I think Max got outmaxed by Oscar, because that is a Max move. You go into the corner, you barely make it. You make it so you stay on the track, but you give the other car absolutely zero room to make that corner. And Max has done that countless times. Whether it's like against Lando, there's been incidents against Lewis, Charles, whoever, it doesn't matter, right? He's done this. This is his move where he makes a corner barely and doesn't give the other person enough room to go. And then they inevitably give the place back because they don't want that penalty. And I think that's what happened. But I do think, the second part I want to talk about is kind of like the media portrayal of Max. Derek in the Discord, shout out the Discord, great community, come join us, link in the bio. He was talking about the media portrayal of Max and that incident, and we've talked a lot about that. I'm going to move on to that in a second. But really, I think I'm not sure if that was a well-deserved 5-second penalty, given how Oscar took that corner, and given that, it was his choice to also give him no room on it.
Sure. And I think, you said it perfectly. It was so eloquent, Walker. Max got outmaxed. That was it. That's the best way to say it. Because Max has done that 1,000 times, and then he's been on the radio saying, "Oh, give me that place back." We've seen this 1,000 countless times, and I think that nails it. That sums it up perfectly. Max got outmaxed.
Yeah, and we've been super critical of Max for doing that,
100%.
Of not racing, what we would consider fairly, of not giving enough space, of kind of like these dirty tactics. But no one made that assertion against Oscar, and I think that's just a result of kind of people's lived experience with Oscar versus Max, and like the what's the word I'm looking for?
Like public
reputation, like the reputation that he's kind of established for himself over the years in Formula One.
Sure. I think that people are willing to give Oscar a little bit more grace because Oscar's been a more graceful guy than Max has. You know what I mean? Max was a bit of a whiny baby for a lot of it. And, people were just kind of not in the mood for it. And, and then when he started crying wolf, people weren't having it. And so, yeah, he kind of made his own bed, I think, over the first couple of years. And then especially with his reactions to kind of how he treated Checo in a lot of those situations about, giving places back, where I think Oscar, when given team orders and stuff with Lando, has played ball, whether it was in his favor or not. He's been very team oriented. And I think that speaks to character. And you know what? To that point, Walker, I think that's a great point. Nobody said anything about Oscar. It's all been like, oh, did Max deserve the penalty? No one said, well, that was dirty driving from Oscar. I haven't heard that once.
Mm-hmm.
I think that says a lot.
So sticking with Max, and considering that we've been, again, on the show and myself personally, critical of some of his behavior in the past, given how he's driving this year, given how he's driven the last couple of years, does he still deserve that rep?
I think he's outgrowing it. I think very slowly Max is. It was funny. I bring my wife up a lot here, but we watch the race together. It's something that we do. And, she even said at the end of this race, she's like, I'm hating Max a lot less. He's just I don't know if dad mode's coming out or his whole race dynamics change, but you can kind of just see. It was in the cool down room when Charles and Oscar were in the cool down room with him, and you can just tell that Max is just there to drive. People are asking him oh, are you excited to be a father? And he's like, can you just ask me questions about racing? I'll do my job, you do your job. Yes, I'm having a kid that's gonna be sweet. I'm here to talk about racing. Let's go racing. And, when you understand that more about him, I think you get the mentality of him a little bit better. And I think you can understand his decisions a little bit more.
So I noticed probably since near the end of last season that he seems a little bit more grounded and chill and more mature. He actually did some growing up, and just he should have been at that stage where he is now. He should have been probably a couple seasons ago. I think he would have been way less hated and way more loved. So he definitely improved. He's way more chill. Even, you could even tell in his commentary and everything, just way, way nicer demeanor and just way more mature overall. So yeah, he definitely changed.
I wonder how much he has changed and how much our perspectives of him have changed when he's not the like alpha driver, when he's not the dominant force that he has been, right? And when everything's not going his way and when, the car isn't performing and he's having some struggles, I wonder how much of that plays into how we perceive him as a driver and a competitor versus when he's just absolutely destroying the field week in, week out and dominating. So I guess the question I'm trying to ask is, do you think that Max has really changed as a competitor and as a racer, or do you just think our perception of him has changed because he's not that dominant force that we're used to seeing and it just became annoying to see him win and in such dominant fashion all the time?
I think that's both parts because, when someone just wins all the time, unless you're like that guy's biggest fan, it's just annoying. Like I was never a Patriots fan, and to watch them win like Super Bowl after Super Bowl after Super Bowl, it ain't it. So, yeah, I think that that's a big portion of it. Do I think that like drivers just mature? Sure. Max is like, well into Formula One. He's won his championships. Like he's a great racer. It's not a question about it. But to your point too, when he doesn't have the dominant car anymore and he's not winning races by 25, 30 seconds, do you remember when we used to do that? The over under on like how many seconds Max was going to win by? Like it wasn't whether he was going to win. It was how many seconds he was going to win by. Like that's kind of, part and parcel of like what our perception of him is. And like when he used to complain about stuff, you're like, dude, what are you complaining about? And now when you see him driving and like he has legitimate complaints about his car or this or the balance or brakes or I can't do this, I'm more likely to hear him out now. Like it's not crying wolf anymore. It's just like, okay, like maybe this guy's got problems. And like, I'm going to be honest, he's winning and losing gracefully. Like you don't hear him complaining like, oh, my car sucked. These guys aren't delivering me what, you know what I mean? Like he's like, hey man, listen, I'm going out and I'm doing the best I can. And, he's put some absolutely incredible laps in to get pole and, scrapping together podiums and race wins. So like, as far as I'm concerned, Max is a fantastic driver and he's been doing his absolute best with what he's got. And, my perception of him is changing slowly. Like, will he ever be my favorite racer? Hell nah. But I think he's an all right guy. He'll be all right.
That was such a wild time to be an F1 fan where you were just like figuring out the over under on how many seconds he would win by. It seems distant at this point, but it wasn't that long ago where there's that level. It was, a year ago this time, like they were gapping the field by those large margins. And it's just, McLaren caught up near the end and Ferrari caught up near the end. So we have obviously the penalty. The other part of it that I wasn't fully aware of, and I mentioned Derek brought this up in the Discord, was about, I guess, like F1 media or whoever is in charge of the broadcast kind of essentially making shit up.
Yeah, doctoring the
doctoring
team radio.
Like the team radio. I don't know how true this is. I think you said you want to see the receipts on that, but it doesn't seem like it would be out of character either.
No, that's why I say I want to see the receipts. And like just before we press record on this podcast, I went to the F1 channel's like race highlights, and that section was in it. And I like slowed it down, and just the cadence of him talking. I don't know what he said, but there was a word in there that effing could have totally fit in there. And like it wasn't out of character for him to say, oh, that's just effing lovely. It was just something lovely. There was an adjective in there. They bleeped it out. I don't know if it started with an F. I have no idea. But, I wouldn't put it past him. Especially like, what is the FIA handing out fines? He doesn't give a shit. He didn't care. You know what I mean? I don't know. Yeah, but I guess the overarching point is that like, do I like the FIA manipulating it? And the fact that we don't believe it is the problem. Like the fact that we're actually questioning the FIA, like 2-3 years ago, we would have never questioned the FIA, right? And like, are they just starting something? Is Liberty Entertainment kind of coercing them into saying like, hey, how can we make this a little bit more spicy? Can we, because now that there's new FIA rules about swearing and all that kind of stuff, like, can we build a storyline here for Drive to Survive, or can we build a storyline here more for entertainment than the reality of it? I don't care if he swears. He can do whatever he wants. Guy's in a car going 300 miles an hour. I don't give a shit what he does. But I don't condone, I think, the wild manipulation into making somebody, because I guess they're essentially trying to vilify him. If you want to break it down, like they're trying to give Max a certain look.
Thomas?
So, I'm so mixed and upset about this whole thing, just basically from watching Drive to Survive, how they weren't presenting the show honestly a little bit. They were creating this drama. And then the whole thing with the swearing came in, how you're not allowed to swear because it's, whatever, we're trying to make it more PG or whatever the case is, it should be role models. And now with, what happened this past weekend, if it did happen, let's say if he said, bloody instead of whatever, the F word, let's say, but just the whole, to Drew's point, the fact that we are questioning this, that's a serious red flag. And I look at that and it seems like almost in a way like censorship. Like it becomes these new rules that don't really make sense. And it takes away, in my eyes anyways, it takes away, how can I put this? How can I word this? Kind of from the sport, it becomes kind of fake. It doesn't become real. It becomes scripted. And that's what I have a problem with. If this continues on, for myself, I can see myself jumping out of F1 and not watching it just because with the FIA BS, what they're doing, it's becoming too scripted. And again, to Drew's point, they're trying to, it seems like they're trying to attack Max. And that's not cool, right? It's something's going on, whether that's the president of FIA or Liberty Media, but something needs to change there. And not just us that are noticing, but fans are starting to notice that too. And they're not very too happy or pleased with this situation, what's going on.
It's not dissimilar to what we talked about a few weeks ago when I forget it was China or Suzuka, where they played a portion of Hamilton's message about letting Charles go by, right? And they played the portion where he was like, no, I'm not letting him go by. He has to catch me first, et cetera, et cetera. There's this whole storm. And it was only when Fred Vasseur kind of called him out being like, that's not what happened. Right. This is no different, right? You're manufacturing entertainment and you're creating potentially something out of nothing. And I don't know, maybe I just take these messages, these team radios too literally. But when I see 4 stars, you guys can check this out on the Discord as well. When I see 4 stars, I'm trying to think of 4-letter words.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's that literal, but I'm he could say that's just lovely, very sarcastically. I'm not trying to figure out what can go in there, but it's definitely something that is concerning. And, we talk about a lot, that mix between sport and entertainment and what's trying to be manipulated and presented, and then Drive to Survive, everything you guys just touched on. And this kind of mistrust of the governing body of the most popular racing series in the world is definitely a troubling trend. So we'll see kind of what happens. That was the second thing I want to talk about. So we got the corner, we got Max and the FIA, potential manipulation. Third thing I want to touch on this week is I want to touch on Hamilton. I want to talk about Lewis a little bit because I don't know what to believe. And, one fanboy to another, Drew, this is kind of breaking my heart a little bit. And I don't know if we're ever going to see the same kind of dominant performance out of him that we are used to or wanting to see, because he does not seem to be getting along with that. I mean, he hasn't got along with this entire generation of car, to be honest. But I don't know. It's just the sound clips coming out of him do not seem bright and optimistic.
Which is so wild, because we had that sprint race and he dominated. Was winning by 4 seconds. Where did that come from? That just reignited my whole hope for Lewis Hamilton. But you're right, man. To your point, he just sounds so defeated, and I'm nervous that he's just not gonna get that spark back, that same spark that Fernando seems to just not be letting go. And I've seen him on the cover of Vogue. Is he just getting distracted? Are there too many other things in his world that are going on that he's just not into this racing thing anymore? The fall from grace at Mercedes. And now he's at Ferrari, hoping it was going to boost it. And, he obviously we're a handful of races in before making these judgments or whatever. Charles has had a long time at Ferrari to get comfortable in that car. And but to your point again, Walker, though, he hasn't looked very comfortable in any car this generation, and that's sad. And I've watched Lewis, be an immediate icon and hero for me in the Formula One space, and I obviously want him to see him do well, but he's just struggle busing. He's got a ticket on that struggle bus, and he can't seem to get off, and that's it's too bad. It really is.
So what I don't know if it was Fred Wasser or whoever, but basically people started speculating, he's washed up, he lost it, he's not into it. And, Fred came to his defense saying, no, he still has the passion and everything. And I really do hope that he truly still has the passion and that drive to go and win that championship, especially with Ferrari. Is he struggling? Yeah, he is. Was he struggling with Mercedes? Yeah. And it's hard to tell what it is. Maybe to your point, Drew, maybe there's just too much distractions in his life. He needs to maybe cut some stuff out or reschedule or something. But, how he jumped from Mercedes to Ferrari, yeah, there's going to be an adaptation period. Yes, he's going to have to learn. Now we're on race 5 or race 6 approaching, and he still hasn't really got the grip of the car. It is a little bit concerning for sure. Am I going to write him off and say, that's it, he has no spark and he's washed up? No, I still think he's a great driver. I want to see him succeed. I want to see him win. I think he needs a little bit more time. And, unfortunately, that's one thing, especially him, giving his age and his career that he doesn't really have. Right? So he needs to fast. He needs to get a grip really fast, no pun intended. But, I really hope he works his magic or Ferrari help him out and keep supporting him. And I hope he gets that spark back and actually fights and competes for podiums.
I feel like we're going through that time. I don't know if you guys can relate to this, like when you're a kid and you start to realize that your parents aren't perfect. And you're like, whoa, your eyes open and you're like, wow, like they're human too. Like they make mistakes and like they suck at certain things. It's like, I feel like I'm having that eye-opening experience right now because, it was like Mercedes, it was the car, it was the development, it was the R&D, it wasn't going, they weren't listening to his feedback. And now you're a Ferrari and you want to hold out hope. I still got hope, but it's hard to remain as like just unapologetically biased as I've been in the past, being like, come on, man, like where is it? Like just want to like charge your batteries. I want to like wind them up a bit and just like watch them go, but it's just not there. So, we touched on, this generation of cars just hasn't been one he's gotten along with, the ground effects, that style of driving and that type of downforce. I wonder how committed he is to this year's car, given how we started off, or if he's just waiting it out until you get new cars next year, new regs, new aero kind of philosophies around it, hoping that maybe that is a model and that's a type of car that he is going to be more naturally suited to driving.
And that's the thing, though. That's dangerous to wait for that, right? Because, who knows if he's going to adapt to that car? Like, look at the adaptation to this regs, and, that didn't happen over the entire course of the regulations. He won a handful of races and, was struggling to get onto podiums. It hasn't been pretty. If you watched, Formula One in the last 2-3 years, Lewis Hamilton is not the greatest of all time, right? He's a mid-pack racer on the best day.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's not good. That's not what I started watching, right? I started watching, Lewis pulling off some crazy, crazy stuff back in 2015, 2016 or whenever I started. I guess it's been a better part of a decade now since I've been following Formula One. So, it's just sad, and it's sad to watch that happen. And to Thomas's point, I really don't think that Lewis has lost his spark. I just don't know if he has that skill set anymore. You can grow out of things, right? What I was good at when I was 22 years old is not something that I'm good at anymore. And things change, your body changes, you unadapt to things.
Is this just a natural life cycle of a Formula One racer who is 40 now?
Correct.
Right? I mean, Alonso's got some fire under him, but he hasn't been performing particularly well the last few years.
Correct.
He had some flashes of brilliance. Like, is this just, can you not escape time? Or there's just certain things that you start to lose as you get older where you can't be competitive? I'm not sure.
Sure. And then these young bucks come in. Yeah, go for it.
Sorry, what I really noticed was when Lewis and Valtteri were of the same team, the last time that I can remember when they were on the same team, Mercedes, that's when Lewis was peak. He was, performing, and Valtteri was helping him, and it was really entertaining, and it was entertaining to watch, him competing. And now looking back at 3-4 years ago, or looking back at it now 3-4 years ahead, and it's just not there. It's a completely different result, and it kind of blows my mind. Where did he go? Again, Drew said, regulations, adaptation. He might be waiting for the next year's regulations in cars, but that's also a dangerous game because, like you said, what if he doesn't adapt, right? Like, where do you go from here? And it's just sad to see. I really, really hope he gets it back and continues.
I think if anyone can be mentally strong enough to kind of come back, it would be him. I'd like to think that. And you got to think, I mean, it's no different with Max or any of these drivers, but especially like guys that are at the top, like Max and Lewis. Like, you have people online in the comments talking shit about you all day. Like, you can't, like, I know they don't read it, but it's just like, it's like you just know it's out there, and that energy is out there, and that vitriol and that bad juju is just out there. And it takes a special person to block it out. And Max does that in a very different way than I think Lewis does that. And he's always been, the optimist. He's always been still we rise. He's always been, had all his catchphrases of being this inspirational driver who's achieved incredible things. And I like to think he still has that in him. It's just, you're just going through a period where you're eating shit. But
yeah. Isn't there is it just me, or is I always just want to press a magic button and I want to put every single guy in the exact same car?
Well,
I want to do that because I just want to see does he have it or not have it?
Well, to your point, but I think this is like something similar. You talk about the different characteristics of the cars, and he talks about how hard it is to adapt. Would Max be? We have this conversation all the time, but would Max be as quick in a McLaren? Right? He says he would be, but do you have to drive the car so differently that maybe you're not?
Yeah.
Right? Are all these drivers so honed into that particular car and how it's engineered to drive that just getting into another car doesn't mean automatic victory because it's the fastest one for Oscar and Lando right now, that anyone would be fast in that McLaren?
Yeah. It's a combination of driver and car, right? And that's always been what's been going on. Yeah, it's interesting, and we've seen that a lot, and some of these older guys aging out of Formula One, and I don't think that it's going to be now. I think Lewis needs to get into that new car. I don't even want to count this year out. No, I'm gonna stop there. I don't want to count this year out. I don't, because as a fanboy, that's what you do. You back your boy, win or lose, and I just think that he has more in him, and if Leclerc's putting that on the podium, that means he has every opportunity to get that car on a podium. Because he's just as good of a driver. Maybe not over one lap, but that guy can make a car work over the course of a race.
Well, listen, we've got 19 more races. He's got 19 more races to figure it out. We've got 19 more races to cry.
To watch him try to figure it out.
To watch him try and figure it out and cry if he doesn't. We got Miami coming up, which is, I think, no one's favorite track. Correct me if I'm wrong, but
it's whatever.
It's whatever. It's Miami.
Lando
it's a
got
show.
his first win there. That's all I remember about Miami.
Exactly. Lando will be happy to get back there. Hopefully he will have a bit of a bounce back from his weekend, which was, in all intents and purposes, a decent weekend until he put it in the wall in Q1 or Q3, I should say.
Yeah.
He came back.
That was wild. That's not a Lando move.
No?
Nah, that's not a Lando move. Not in qualies, man. That's not a Lando move.
Maybe. I think it's kind of like what we talked about last week, Thomas. It's like how much confidence do you have in Lando to kind of close out a season where he has the car and the talent to win it all versus let these little mistakes creep in?
Okay, that I'll agree with. That I can agree with. I just mean crashing the car in Q3 is not like a typical Lando.
No.
Like if you said that's a Checo, I'd be like, hell yeah, that's a Checo play for sure. But like,
Yeah.
as far as a Lando move, that's not a Lando move. But yes, like folding under pressure, yes, that's a Lando thing. I don't know. And that's the thing, is Lando has all the talent in the world. I just think that like when push comes to shove, sometimes he just makes some bonehead decisions. And I would say maybe not now, because George has been doing a lot better, but I'd say George Russell was in that boat too. He was one of those guys that like push came to shove, he just like couldn't make it all happen. He couldn't string all of them together to make a whole season or a whole race.
Did you guys see that clip of Sebastian Vettel talking about Lando?
I did not. I saw mention of it, but I never saw the clip.
No, how he was talking about how every driver goes, we talk about like going back to Lewis even, you go through like self-doubt, and you go through, not believing that you are the best driver in the world, and Lando's like the only one to talk about it. Right. And he's the only one to be out there and admit, but like, yeah, like sometimes I feel really nervous and like I feel like shit. And I am afraid of failing and all that stuff. And that's not something you hear. And it's just applauding Lando for kind of being a little bit more honest with, the psyche of a driver, which wouldn't have happened 10, 20 years ago, right? Because everyone had to be like fucking stone faced and the best and all that. So
they were cowboys back then. There were some cowboys back then. No, you're right though. But like if you look at the recent champions, man, like they all have this like stoicism about them that they can like put on a face and just get to it, And between Lewis and Max, has there ever been a champion besides Lewis and Max since I started watching Formula One? I don't know. I don't think so. It's either been Lewis or Max. Yeah. Anyways, the point is that like, I can't see Lando there yet. I just don't know if he's got that in him. And like, I can see that with Oscar. Like Oscar just has that like little stoicism about him where he's like super calm. Like he never gets flustered. It's like the race is already in the bag for him before he even starts it. And like, even when he's not in first place or like they make a shitty strat call or whatever the case is, I just think that he just gets on with it. He doesn't sit and cry about it or get upset or whatever. He just says his piece, doesn't swear. He's just so calm and level headed. And I think that's what takes a true champion. You know what? You heard it here first. I think Oscar's going to win it before Lando does.
So I'm pretty sure, me and Walker were kind of talking about this last week, and I made kind of comparison between Oscar and Max. And there's so much similarities between them, to what you basically said. The way Oscar is compelled, composed, just concentrated, goes out, does his thing, comes back, and whatever the result is, win or lose, he keeps the same composure, doesn't show too much excitement, just very, very grounded. While Lando is a little bit more emotional. Not that that's a bad thing, but I could see the same thing. I could see Oscar progressing further and more faster than Lando for sure, which is a little bit of a shame since, Lando was there since the beginning and McLaren's like, he's our number one driver. I kind of feel for Lando in that sense, but unfortunately, Oscar is the one with the results so far.
Well, he's up 10 points, 5 races in, so his to lose at this point.
Fair enough.
Well, we'll see. So we got Miami, we got a bye week next week. And then Miami. And then we go.
Is it weird that I'm actually looking forward to a bye week? The triple header was big.
Do you need a break?
Yeah, the triple header was big, man. Like I was just like, you know what? I think we had such a good race, then such a bad race, and then such a the roller coaster ride. It's too much for me, man. I got a lot of stuff going on in my life right now, and I just can't handle the swings here.
I mean, the problem is that you stayed up till 3 a.m. to watch a shit race.
Rattled.
That just kicked things off on the wrong foot. It was just the wrong race to stay up for. What was it, Suzuka?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I think that's kind of where it. Yeah, I'll take a bye week, mainly because I just want to see. Selfishly, I want to see like Ferrari regroup and come back strong and just like kill it, which is probably not going to happen. But I'm holding out hope still because
there you go.
That's what I do.
I thought, Walker, you want to see off week for some drama hopefully happening these next 2 weeks.
For some what?
I thought you wanted the off week to see if there's going to be any drama happening these next 2 weeks between the teams.
What drama are you talking about? What am I missing?
No, just drama, whatever might come up in those next 2 weeks.
The miscellaneous F1 drama,
Miscellaneous F1 drama. Sorry. Yeah, I'll look out for it. Well, you know what? Hopefully there's something, because we'll have something to talk about next week.
There's always something to talk about. Something's going to happen.
Absolutely. And that's why everyone listens to F1 True North, the Canadian Formula One podcast. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to, tell your friends, family, rate, subscribe, join the Discord, find us on social. Anything else I'm missing?
That's it, baby.
There we go. We'll be back next week talking about something. Tune in to find out what.
Let's get it.
There we go. All right, ciao for now.